Okay, I'm going to point out just different statements from William B. McCarl's scholarly article, which is really, really good as far as a compilation of descriptions of Joseph Smith look. Although there have been In Search of Joseph, Million Children, Brother Joseph Again, where Shannon Michael Tracy did a really good job finding more statements like these thick, so many statements of these thick, bushy eyebrows, long eyelashes, very oblong, oval. And then I recommend going to page 73 of In Search of Joseph, where you can see a digital. I think that's the best way to see his jawline, because I think they made some mistakes in making the book a little bit, because when they show his 3D version, I think the original computer version, it should have just been kept as is. They just tried to, I don't know, add some cartoonish things on it that's the only thing I don't like about it. But Zygote Media, I think this is really what they had, is they've got Dr. Van de Graaff, you've got Dr. Niles Harrod. Okay, Dr. Niles Harrod is a maxillofacial surgeon. Dr. Van de Graaff taught anatomy and physiology. He's a doctor at BYU as an emeritus. He wrote books on anatomy and physiology. So them together with Zygote Media decided which schools was Joseph as one, buried as Hiram. And then they took the death mask and they created with Zygote Media that they traced along the death mask. And then they were able to figure out, they even maxillofacial even knew about the teeth and how to line up the jaw with the skull. Is just such an excellent, amazing, jaw-dropping, well-done book. And people give Michael Tracy so much crap. I'm like mad right now. I'm sorry, you guys. Like, nobody knows about this. Believe that the skull buried his Hiram Smith is Joseph's. So they took that skull to figure out his jawline, his face shape. And his jawline is very narrow. And I want you to look at that skull, the article by Rumig and yeah, they about this new alleged photo. They have a really nice photo of the sons. It might be a little bit distorted. My mom and I were talking about it, looking at it, because there's so many other photos of the sons, but it's so clear. It looks exactly like this 3D version where the cheekbones are high and then it's just this sharp V coming down to the chin. So the jawline is not huge. It's not larger than the cheekbones, whereas this alleged photo is different. But I'm going to read these statements. And there are many statements about his. Okay, head, very oblong. Chrono is high. But his eye, we want to listen to this especially. So oblong, long face. And so this is the only person that says Hazel. Again, this is Weekly Gazette, May 1844. He's being like interviewed. He's meeting a bunch of people. I'm thinking he's like inside a house with bad lighting. Whereas like 99% of the people, and quotes, especially quotes of people that knew Joseph for 15, 20 years, his eyes were light. They were blue. And if you look at all the artwork, they show blue eyes. And everyone said blue eyes. So he had light eyes. Anyway, not Hazel, I think. Anyway, it is shaded at times and almost veiled by the longest, thickest light lashes you ever saw belonging to man. The brows also were light, so they're not dark, and thick indeed, thick indeed. Precisely that called a betel brow. Okay, and then Parley Pratt here, you've got him saying a little bit light complexion, light hair. His eyes just, never rest. You never stop wanting to look into his eyes, beaming with intelligence, benevolence, mingled with a look of interest and an unconscious smile and cheerfulness. So let's explain. And I'm going to go down to where they basically compile the large head, retreating forehead, eye shaded at times, almost veiled, longest, thickest eyelashes, eyes Handsome blue eyes, eyes that standing prominently out in his light hazel. It's just literally just not one person, so that there's some people off, but prominent nose. Okay. The carriage of Apollo. Unconscious smile has a lot to do with these scars you see, I believe, on the right side of his mouth. I think it pulled it up so it looked more like a smile. Whereas here you're not seeing, you would think something so clear. You can see these scars on his mouth that I believe are what causing that. You don't see that. And the right side of this man's mouth is, but I don't see these long eyelashes. I don't see these bushy, thick eyebrows. And then you see in the artwork, at least like, but I definitely don't see long eyelashes. But if you go to here, you can really see these eyelashes are veiling his eyes. They're, even though this is not quite as much detail in here, you can't see some things on the left side of his face because it's blown out, but you can definitely see that it just astounds me like how long these eyelashes are. And I think I can see these eyelashes coming up a little bit right there, curving up on that. You could just see them. You can tell that these are eyelashes. That isn't, it's just coming straight down right there in the middle. So these eyelashes are very long, very bushy eyebrows. And the concerns that I had with the other guy with the non-existent eyebrows, this is that eyebrow put on here. So you see it's that same shape, but then on the our far left, his right, that curve up there, it really looks like it's probably the curve of his brow bone. So it just matches up. So really, when I did all this, I didn't have to change the size of anything but the outline because of camera distortion, which is very obvious when you look at my photos of the death mask to the stock photo of Silver Peasant. The outline of the face is suddenly so wide. So that's why you don't do photo anthropometry, because there's so many errors with it, and then you end up just guessing, and so how forensic scientists do it, I mean, again, hey, if someone's like an anthropologist or someone who understands bones and is a scientist and understands hair, there's variables of things that they understand that just an artist is just doesn't know, like I'm a CMA, but I'm not teaching anatomy and physiology at BYU. I'm not an academic with a PhD teaching people how to identify people in videos or in photos or solving murder cases or identifying and being huge in the news for identifying someone in a photo. There are people I know that like have done that know a whole lot more than me, and so their whole process is not, they aren't really doing what I do. I'm studying things artistically, but you see there's the superimposition of the mouth right there. And you're seeing the corners of the mouth really, it is higher on the guy's right side than his left. It's drooping more on the left side of the mouth and coming up more on the right. But you are seeing a scar coming up there on the right side that'd be pulling it up a little bit. But I also, but you're seeing that chin, you're seeing evidence of it being a protruding chin. And you can see that matching up here. A little bit of a cleft right there. But yeah, I definitely look at their paper if you read it, and you'll see this picture. Just find that picture of the suns where you can see they've sort of got a similar shape. It's almost more dramatic. It looks a little bit distorted, but like their cheekbones are high and then their jawline is more narrow. And it's almost this V shape down there when it gets to the jawline. Look how thick those eyebrows are and prominent. Like you would see it. You would see it in such a clear daguerreotype as that. And then when the man in that daguerreotype has, just look at his jawline. It's not that V shape. I mean, it's pretty much a straight line and a very strong jawline. Very strong jawline. Very, very thin eyebrows. No one would ever say a thing about this man's eyebrows. Very curly hair. Never any indication, except in this painting, a slight curl inside. But all of Maudsley's shows straight hair combed forward, and Joseph Smith III said, "My dad's hair is not curly," and he's married to Bertha, for several years, who had very curly hair and very light eyebrows, just like this, and this facial expression. But my goodness, such small, narrow nostrils, with the left nostril a lot higher than his right, whereas that's just not, there's no indication of that on the death mask, and it's such a narrow, thin nose that might have a slight bump well below. Okay, that's what's important, is you can see it's well below the eye line, is where it looks like his nose is starting to come outward. Whereas, yeah, you can see it really is coming out quite high, if that makes sense. There's Hiram, there's Joseph and Hiram. Just that very pronounced nose. Whereas again, when you look at the nose, there you go, you can see that bump and that misshapen. You can see the misshapen nose, but you're seeing all these little, very prominent curves in his face, especially, and you can see it so well right here. This is sort of that indication of the curving. That's a nose. It's a large nose. Okay, Joseph had a larger nose and a broken and remodeled one, I believe. Of course, I'm not a forensic scientist, but you can see that. And more of, it's got that exact curve, so I superimpose that onto the death mask. It's a really, really good match. This follows that exact shape, and you can see below the nostril. Okay, and it's kind of coming around. It's just these little details of the curves of his nostril, and all these shadows bringing all that out. But when you put it here, oh, that shadow, bam, lands. Like, I didn't need to change. When I lined up the eyes, the nose, and mouth, I mean, this man has, his left eye is considerably lower than his right, and yeah, so but shaping out his left nostril, it's all blown out. That's not the shape of his left nostril. So that is an unfortunate fact of this blown out picture. But the distance from that outer sharp, deep curve in his orbital bone, then going into his nose, like it's such a unique thing to have such a misshapen nose match up, and to have a left eye that is so heavy and then a right eye that isn't. You can see on the death mask, the left eyelid doesn't look sunken in, like there's no deep crease, whereas there's a deep crease in the right eye. And you can see these deep loops, and see you've got that scar on the lip. You can really see this shadow coming straight up, that there's a deep scar on this man's mouth. And it lines up. You can tell that this is some, at least, scar tissue on the right side of Joseph's mouth, which in some angles it looks like his mouth is totally pulled up into a smile. So I think that's the unconscious smile, depending on the lighting. You can see that there. So yeah, just come to theprophetscars.com and you'll see these superimpositions. Especially when you look at it that way, you can see, yeah, Joseph, he really had a prominent chin. You see how that chin is, it isn't recessed. As far as just the shape of just the chin, it's coming out. So does Hiram's. But you can see it's rounded. It's not just this flat receding. You can see his lip kind of jumps down, but that it's a good receding hairline. And Levi Hancock mentioned that Joseph Smith brushed his hair straight forward like this, which you don't see in this other photo. And his hair is usually midline to the ears. That on one side of his head, I showed him this area where he had a permanent bald spot, so he has less hair on one side of his head. And scholars had concluded from these statements by Levi Hancock that they told me that's why Joseph brushed his hair forward, because on the side of his head he was missing hair, and you see that very well in this picture of mine. And then you see how but the hairline on the right side matches up. So you've got someone in left side of his, and it's blown out too. So light's hitting inside, blowing it up, making it larger, but in death he fell on his left side, and then you're seeing his scalp like coming forward. So you think it's the opposite when you think that hairline suddenly dropped down and was, 2, 3, a full inch lower. Does that make sense? Like, you can also look at this one. So where you can see it's like the left side of his hairline just seems to be almost a full inch dropped down. Like I think it was a little bit of a cut in his scalp, or it came forward, or they stitched him back together and it pulled things differently. So you can see these, higher cheekbones in these sons, but just a little bit more narrow jawline. None of them have this super protruding strong jawline as that alleged image does. Just the shape of the eyebrows, the mouth. You can just see so much matching up. So Joe Smith III looks more like my photo. Bertha looks more like this new alleged photo, but she's the one wearing the locket. The people who got the locket are descendants through Bertha and Joseph Smith III, who is pictured right here. He was a widower twice, so he's had 3 wives in his whole lifetime. So it's just the descendants through Bertha, and it's just really not good. To me, it's 100% not him, because you've got asymmetry that perfectly doesn't match the death mask. Got the eyebrows, that nose, no eyebrows, a very wide jawline. So according to several of these doctors who did a 3D version of the death mask and the skull to figure out the jaw shape in comparison to the forehead, the skull, and everything, he was really just missing part of his maxilla, and which was on the wrong side. It wasn't relatively even remotely close to where Hiram's bullet wound was. So they're like, that's not from a musket breaking through his skin right on the other side of his nose, and no decay on that broken maxilla. So that's why Dr. Niles Harrod, looking at other areas where there was broken bones and evidence of decay and deterioration, there wasn't. It was a very clean white. There was fresh dirt on it, but it just was a very clean break. He believes it was from the disinterment process not being meticulous at all. And then you see how that, the hairline like really doesn't match. It's just such a different shape to his face. But anyway, that's a long laundry list of things that, just having ruminated and analyzed it meticulously like this, it's not him. Okay, have a good day.